I want to talk to you about gaslighting. Now, that's a term that you probably have recently heard. I don't remember hearing that 10, 15, 20 years ago. But actually, the term gaslighting comes, the best we can determine, from a 1944 movie called Gaslight. And amazingly, it's still available to you today. But the theme of this story is that Paula, the main actress, is in love with somebody who has charmed her, deceived her. They get married, and he then systematically tries to convince her that she's insane. She starts to see and hear different things, and eventually she's institutionalized, and he's able to steal the family's treasure. And it's not until the investigator at the end helps her to realize that she's been gaslit, made to think that she's crazy. And that's actually what gaslighting is. It's the attempt of one person to manipulate another so that they have self-doubt, so that they begin to question themselves. The uncertainty makes them passive. And when that happens, you become less potent as a leader. Why? Because you've lost your self-confidence. So then we begin to think, what are some of the common types of gaslighting, making a person think they're crazy? Number one is the bold-faced lie. We've heard it said, if you say it long enough and loud enough, people will begin to believe it. In fact, oftentimes, those who are doing the gaslighting actually believe the lies that they're telling. They've told them so frequently. Or they'll tell a lie to just move you off of the real subject. The second way that we see people using gaslighting is by manipulating the reality, by creating this uncertainty, by perhaps saying, you can't really believe that. Or don't you remember we had this conversation? Oh, I marked it on my calendar. I think you're wrong. You must have seen that on the internet. You can't believe anything on the internet. So what happens is you begin to say, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I did forget that. And what happens is you as the victim can become more passive. They become more aggressive. That's one of the end results of gaslighting. So that third area is really when they begin to blame others, the scapegoating, the redistribution of responsibility. We sometimes would call that what? Deflection. And so they can say, well, that's so-and-so's fault, or I only did that because of. And again, they can mix and match these causes so they can lie to shift blame from themselves, or they can begin to cast dispersion or doubt on other people, or blame even you as one of the causes for their actions. What are they doing? They're minimizing their responsibility. They are gaslighting. The fourth area is when they give ultimatums. If you keep doing that, I'm going to quit. Or if you say that again, I'm going to fire you. Or I'm leaving this relationship. So what's happening? They're exacting a price on you if you don't buy in to their line of logic, to their lie, to their manipulation, to their scapegoating. That fifth area of gaslighting I like to call the sweet stab, right? It sounds nice, but it actually has the intent of manipulating, of making you doubt yourself. Somebody could say, for instance, well, nobody's going to believe you unless you have a degree. Or we can't believe somebody like that could have this kind of influence, so why would you trust them? And so what happens is you begin to see how all of these categories of gaslighting make you feel like, I'm not quite up to par. I'm not able to be assertive because I doubt myself. So let's talk about taking back control. The first thing you have to do is test assumptions. Once you're aware that gaslighting is taking place, it's easy to assume everybody's trying to gaslight you, when that usually isn't true. But people who do the gaslighting, they often are very intentional. They are manipulating that situation. When you start to see it, don't overreact. Just have in your mind, am I being gaslit? Is somebody trying to make me doubt myself? Are they questioning the veracity of the facts? If somebody's gaslighting you, think about taking notes, making a record of what you actually said. I actually encourage, when you know somebody's gaslighting you and that assumption has been proved true, always have another person in those conversations so that you can begin to say, that's been established by somebody other than my own memory. So number 2, don't return the favor by replicating. It's very tempting to fight fire with fire. Don't do that. Don't practice what you're despising. Don't do to others what they have done to you. I think if you'll ask questions like why and what if, that's a third way you can begin to take back control. So just because somebody strongly asserts that something's true, or they're questioning your memory, you can just say, well, why do you think that? Or what is it that you have that shows that that was the nature of the conversation? That's why with some people, it's good after a conversation, after a meeting, write summary notes and send them off. But if somebody is saying, well, this is what you did, or this is why we should do this, ask the question, well, what if what I'm saying is true and what you're asserting is inaccurate? What if, or why should I go down that pathway? Let's assume that I did say what you said. Let's assume that you're correct. What if I want to change my mind? What if I want to go back and revisit that in the date book or in the notes again? So don't rush into the conversation. Just ask questions. So number 4, I would say, take time to do fact checking, right? People who are trying to manipulate or in some way gaslight you into thinking you're off, that your thinking is awry, actually go back and test some of the data. Somebody says something, just because they said it doesn't mean that it's true. Go back, do your research, call a timeout. Say, I want to go make sure that fact is true. Because once a gaslighter has put into the bloodstream of a conversation a fact that now is established as being true or assumed to be true, they control the conversation. So I want to encourage you, say, let's take a minute. I want to go do a little research. I think that the facts actually speak differently than that. So don't be fooled by the pressure of time. So a 5th category is simply build a culture in your organization, in your circle of friendships that is adverse to gaslighting. When you see it, call it out. You don't have to blast them, but just say, no, I'm not going there. I'm not crazy about this. This is not a way I want to have this conversation go. And pretty soon it becomes normal that gaslighting is despised. So create a culture that makes it adverse. Now, you know how Paula in the movie Gaslit or Gaslight was made to feel crazy and ultimately institutionalized? Well, the movie, and I don't want to spoil it completely for you, but the investigator of the insurance company actually came and was watching as the lights were dimming and coming back, dimming, coming back. She thought she was crazy. Her husband said, that's not happening. She thought she heard footsteps in the attic. Well, the investigator said, you're not crazy. There are footsteps in the attic. And the husband was setting up all of those settings for gaslighting his wife. Why? Because he wanted to steal the family treasure. And when somebody's gaslighting you, they want something from you. They want to manipulate you to an end, to an agenda that they have. So don't be a gaslighter and don't be gaslit.